Hi guys, it's Mandy from Mandyleeplays, and in this video I'm going to do another discussion about why the heck are games so expensive nowadays. And it's something that's been slowly building up for some time. So back in my day, I remember when I used to pay $50 for a video game. Well, I didn't pay for it, my parents did because I was a kid at the time. But yeah, I could say those prices were very good. And then the new norm became 60, which while it's not as good as 50, it's become normalized, and I was honestly okay with just paying 60 for games. Now today the usual is still 60 a little bit, but they're starting to implement $70 games, especially with the release of the Switch 2. So the new norm is gonna be $70. And then Nintendo's out here saying grab my beer and charging $80 for the new Mario Kart World game. I'm not gonna pay $80 for that game. Man, is that wild. So before we got our bearings with the $70 games, then we have $80 games. And I know it's just one game, but other companies are gonna follow suit, like Grand Theft Auto. They're gonna charge a lot of money for that game. So there's clearly a problem at foot. So with the inclusion of online pass, microtransactions, DLC, and as the industry grows, so does the cost of simply playing a game. But why? Why is gaming so expensive, especially compared to movies, TV shows, books? Why is it that games are labeled a luxury hobby nowadays? In this video, I'm gonna go over the reasons why gaming is like this. Now, I'm no expert, I'm just a simple fan of video games, so all this may not be true. This is just my interpretation, and please let me know your interpretations in the comments down below. Now for the background, I don't want to say that this discussion really started with Mario Kart World, but it kind of did, mainly because the audacity of charging $80 and then stating that they're doing this variable price thing, which is a very slippery slope if you ask me, and a lot of people open their eyes to what the heck is going on in the industry. So while I am taking shots at Mario Kart World, I'm not necessarily saying the game is bad. I'm throwing jabs at the audacity that they charge $80 for the damn game. Not only that, Borderlands 4 is rumored to be $80 as well, which is ridiculous. And there's also a tweet that came out where a customer was saying, hey, I don't want to pay $80 for a Borderlands game. And the creator of Borderlands was like, if you're really a fan of Borderlands 4, then you would pay whatever price we charge. Something like that. So not only is that really tone deaf to your customers and rude, honestly, and it also highlights that game devs could charge anything, even if the game is not to the $80 standards, which I don't even think there's a $80 standard spreadsheet out there. But most people, when they think of $80, they're thinking of Grand Theft Auto 5, games like that, not Borderlands. But contributing to this frustration is also the fact that Xbox has raised their prices both on games and their consoles. And soon we will see Sony potentially following suit as well. Now the consoles are a little bit more understandable because there's tariffs and stuff, and they have to get specific parts from different places. I know my complaints might be a bit American-centric because I live in America, but this practice is going to affect everyone around the world. And please don't pull out the Toys R Us ad from 1996 to justify a price increase. First of all, this is not 1996. This is 2025. Second of all, we are living in totally different circumstances. And third of all, even though games back then were expensive, do you know what also increased back then? Your salary. I'm just saying, salaries are not increasing right now, so there's a bit of an imbalance. And with the way of the world has been leaning towards, I don't really see anything changing anytime soon. But there are glimmers of hope here and there. For example, Expedition 33, it's a great game, full content, $50, the graphics are awesome, and the story is phenomenal. And right there makes me believe that there's a lot of hope for AA games in the industry, and also indies. I feel like indies are gonna make such a big comeback. So I'm gonna start with my first point, and that is ballooning budgets. Massive budget games and razor thin profits. How many times have you seen new articles coming out about games and their massive budgets to create said game? I won't lie, games take a lot of money to make. They're not easy. You have to oftentimes hire multiple people in multiple fields, and there's also marketing and things like that. Here are some examples. Cyberpunk 2077 had a budget of $442 million. Horizon Forbidden West had a budget of $212 million. And Final Fantasy Remake had a budget of $140 million. And mind you, this is before any form of marketing budget is accounted for. Now, I'm not good at numbers, but I could tell you that's a lot of money. And with each generation, the hardware has the pressure of being something new for the next gen. That means higher production values, longer dev cycles, and vastly higher costs. And to that, I understand. And I actually feel bad for certain devs because there's a lot of money riding on the backs of their games if it does well or if it does bad. And I truly feel sorry for any dev companies that go out of business because they just didn't meet that profit. And to make things worse, budgets rarely go down, all while the final product has to sell millions of copies to turn a profit. Have you ever looked through social media and you see a game that's below sales but they sold like over 1 million copies and you're like, that's actually good. It's just it didn't really meet the, you know, high ceiling of $1 bajillion. There's only so much a game could make. And I've seen that studios and publishers are reluctant to take any creative risk because of the cost of the failure, which honestly, I don't blame them. That's a lot of money to put into a game that might fail or might do good. All that stuff could add up, and that's why I think a lot of the prices are ballooning. It's a game that rides on a budget that has a lot of things in mind, a lot of profit, and it just balloons into this big thing, and it could pop or it could fly. And this is a thing that I really hate more because it targets the people who actually work on games, the people who are actively creating the worlds that we love, the people that we love, the characters, everything, and it makes it feel like a very hostile environment for that. And it doesn't really protect a lot of the employees that help make our games the way they are, and that's really sad. But it's not only the company's fault, because our next point is gamer complacency. And by the way, I'm not calling out every gamer out there. This is calling out certain groups of people that fall into this category. I have no idea why people defend a company. I understand where I love a game and I love the company. I mean, case in point, Nintendo. But I criticize them all the time, especially when I feel like they kind of stepped out of line. But then there are the people who are like, well, they charge what they charge. You can't do anything about it. And frankly, there are the loudest voices in the gaming community. And while it's easy to point fingers at greedy publishers and runaway development costs, gamer complacency and defending these practices is kind of quietly enabling the state of the industry. Now, I do get that there's two sides of the story, so you know what? Maybe it's because this and A, B, and C. Some people are just like, man, this sucks, but I kind of want to play the game. And that I understand. I'm a Nintendo fan. I've always have been since I was little. But I would never go to bat for $80 games and think like it's justified. To me, that's not a real fan. Now, what is a fan is up to your interpretation, but for me, a real fan loves and enjoys the different things about a company like Nintendo. I love Nintendo games and I love my Nintendo Switch. I've always have. But the main difference for me is when I see something I don't like, I just voice my opinion about it. The blind fan reaction is something I will never understand, honestly. And it oftentimes plays a major part in normalizing certain things that shouldn't be normalized. And that's the complacency that I just really hate. And I've seen a lot of these communities label people who criticize about prices broke, which is so messed up in so many ways, because who are you to say who's broke or not when that person's probably more rich than you because they don't just lay down and pay whatever. And I don't like how when something goes the consumer's way, they automatically say, oh my god, they changed their policy. See, I knew they were gonna do that. You didn't have to, you know, talk back and criticize. No, the fact that they changed something is because of the criticism. So sit back and enjoy the benefits of other people speaking out. I'm sorry I'm getting really heated, but the more I think about it, the more angry I get, because holy cow, it's annoying. And while yes, I know we can't change everything, but if people were more welcoming to criticizing things, then maybe we could get something done. So essentially, while gamers are not the biggest player on why gaming has become so expensive, I won't lie that gamer complacency kind of had a hand in where we are now. Now, the last point, and probably the biggest point, is greed. Greed in the gaming industry isn't new, but in recent years, it's become a feature rather than a occasional misstep. And I've seen a lot of people excuse behavior just because they're getting a bag. No, that doesn't excuse your behavior. That makes you greedy. So while companies back then were still prioritizing profits, they often prioritize quality as well. But I really can't say say that nowadays. At the heart of this greed is a shift in how success is measured, not by how beloved or critically acclaimed the game is, but how much money it makes. And to be fair, most companies operate like this because they're a company and a business has to make money, but I feel like the scales between consumer and business are really kind of tipped over, where we don't get a lot of quality stuff for our prices, which most of them have day one patches, DLC, microtransactions. This is why I really hate mobile games, not because you get to play your games on your phone, but because mobile games are pretty much a shorthand for free-to-play games. And if you know free-to-play games, they're not free to play. They're honestly the most expensive games you could ever have, especially if you get addicted to it. And oftentimes the developers suffer too. While some developers like the greed, others don't. So while not all people at the top are greedy, twirl mustache people, a lot of them are. But the irony is that greed often backfires. Time and time again, we've seen bloated games with massive monetizations fail to meet expectations. A game that's built around greed will probably fail. There are exceptions to that rule, but more often than not, people can see right through it. And a game that's built with love and passion for the craft oftentimes does really well because people do notice that. So at the end of all this, what can we do to make it better? Honestly, I don't really know myself, but there are certain things that you could look for when it comes to this hostile gaming environment. The first thing is crucial, but it rings true. Vote with your wallet. Now there's more nuance to it, of course, I stated them, but when it comes down to it, should you buy this game or not is up to you. Support your indie devs, AA games. They oftentimes make a lot of games with a lot of love and passion for not as much money. Another thing is to praise the games that do it right. If you really love a game that you feel like it deserves its price tag, go out there and praise the game and show some love to it because we need more games like that. There are plenty of game developers and publishers making complete, creative, and consumer-friendly games. So don't be afraid to shout them out. Because honestly, it's not just about criticizing and pointing out things you don't like. Really pointing out the things you do like, it oftentimes makes you feel better about the gaming industry because it might be very dark and toxic right now, but there are really good games that deserve all the spotlight. The industry has come a long way, but it still has a long way to go. I know this topic is really loaded, especially with other things going on, but I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Alrighty, that was the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, then please hit that like button, and if you like my content and would love to see more, then please consider subscribing. I would appreciate it. So with all that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and as always, play a good game. Peace.